Welcome back to AP World History. This is a continuation of Chapter 11, Part 2. We've looked at the Mayans and we looked at Toltec civilization. Now we're going to turn our attention to the Aztecs and then later to the Incas. The Aztecs certainly were the dominant force in Mesoamerica. They were waiting when Cortez landed, and their civilization is going to be taken over by the Spaniards. The Aztecs certainly were a warlike people. They subdued many of their neighbors. They weren't well thought of by many of their neighbors simply because of their aggressive behavior, taking captives and offering those captives up to the sun god. Many of these neighboring tribes, groups, went over to the Spaniards and sided with them against the Aztecs. The Toltec Empire predates the Aztecs, and the Maya or the Aztec civilization will grow from there. In 1325 CE, Tenochtitlan will be founded in the center of Mexico on the lake. The Aztecs were polytheistic. They will worship many gods. Huitzilopochtli is the god that required human sacrifices. And this was done because they felt that if they didn't, the sun would not rise in the east. Tolhok, who is the god of rain, also required human sacrifices. Maize or corn was the main diet of the Aztecs, and they will grow that abundantly. Calpulli, or clans, were the basic social structure. The Aztecs became kind of a hierarchical empire. They had an established elite which controlled the priests and also the military leaders. It was more of a confederation. Women could inherit property, but were expected to work in the fields and raise children. They certainly had a subordinate role to men. And we find this pattern repeated over and over again, women taking a secondary role to men. They had limited technology, although they did have a limited writing. In terms of technology, they had no domesticated animals or water power. Everything was done by hand. Women spent much of their time grinding corn. This is a view of Tenochtitlan on this lake Texcoco, and this is where they will grow, and they will populate around the lake and on the lake. They laid it out similar to Venice in terms of a grid system, and they used these canals to navigate and to transport their corn. And it certainly gave them the convenience of irrigating their crops. This shows the ruins of Tenochtitlan in now Mexico City. The Toltec was their a book, writings recording the history of the Aztecs. Mendoza was the founding of Tenochtitlan. There was a prophecy of an eagle landing on a cactus with a snake in his one claw, and they will observe this and decide that this is where they need to build their city. Tenochtitlan was considered the Venice of America because of these canal systems, and you can see the temples and the pyramids located for sacrifice and so forth, and the royal palace in the middle of the community. They had an ingenious way of growing corn, these floating plots of land. Chinapas were small areas surrounded by trees to break the wind, and also to plant corn and other vegetables. And if they needed more uh, crops to grow, they just created more small islands. The Aztec writing, certainly some of it's been deciphered. They had a counting system. Unlike the Mayans, they had not delivered or did not develop the zero concept, but they did have a system of counting. They also had an extensive calendar, as did the Mayans, and the Incas will also have a way of keeping track of the seasons and so forth. The Aztec Codex is, again, the history, a manuscript of showing what activities the Aztecs were involved in. Certainly, the Aztecs were fierce warriors, and because of the god that they worshipped, they needed to have a fresh supply of victims to offer up to the sun god. Human sacrifices. They would have a live person stretched out over a stone. A priest would extract the heart still beating. After that was accomplished, they would cut the head off of the victim, and it would roll down the steps of the pyramid. They never developed the use of iron. They did have Stone Age tools, obsidian, those kinds of things. But in terms of iron, they did have gold work and silver work, but never developed iron. Here shows the sacrificing taking place at the temple. This is a wall of skulls. Again, death being a part of life, and believing that you had to have blood sacrifices in order to exist, your different gods. Of course, when the Spaniards came, they observed the large amounts of gold and silver and jade and other valuable things, and they will acquire these and strip the Aztecs of this wealth. Now we'll switch gears to the Incas. They live in South America. They live on the coastal area of western coast of South America. Their empire will develop about 1350 CE. They're a little later in terms of the Aztecs. This range will be from what is now present-day Ecuador all the way to the tip of Chile. Will include Bolivia, modern-day Bolivia, and parts of Argentina. So it's a very extensive empire. They were a little bit more centralized in terms of control. They had their people as governors and chiefs in different parts of the kingdom, whereas the Aztecs were a little bit more of a federation, a little bit more freedom to the people that they conquered as long as they paid their taxes and were obedient and loyal to the government. They will develop an extensive irrigation system on sides of the mountains. Potatoes are going to be their primary focus in terms of a starch. They will build bridges and roads to connect their empire. Cusco on Lake Titicaca is where the capital was located. Through alliances and military conquest, they will expand their empire. At the pinnacle of the empire, the highest point of the empire, they estimate that there were 9 to 13 million people under their control. This shows a map of the Inca Empire as it was when Pizarro invaded and captures the emperor. They did believe in ancestor worship. They believed that they could communicate with dead rulers that came before them. They provided sacrifices and tribute to these gods. They were polytheistic, as were the Mayans and the Aztecs. Again, the sun god seemed to dominate, was the highest deity. Amitism, that is worshiping of animals and stones and uh, natural phenomena empowered with spirits, and they offer sacrifices to them to appease them. The emperor ruled at Cusco, and the main temple was located there to the sun god. The highest priest was usually a close relative. They tried to keep it in the family. Conquered rulers were allowed to maintain position if they were loyal to the Inca Empire, but they also had their own people established there. Roads, bridges, they were extensive builders. Labor was offered up each year to the king or to the emperor as part of your tribute, as well as parts of your crop. So labor or menta was an essential aspect of Inca control, not only controlling people but also building things that was needed. Quilpa was their system of counting. They had no writing system like the Mayans and the Aztecs. Here you can see the ancient city of Cusco. It's 11,000 feet. Very short growing season, but conducive for growing potatoes and some other crops. Machu Picchu is considered a summer retreat, a place where the royal family would go at certain times of the year. This was discovered much later. It wasn't discovered when Pizarro and the Spanish initially invaded the Inca Empire. And you can see this is some of the terracing that they did along the hillsides, irrigation and capturing the soil there and growing crops. They had primitive tools. They had digging sticks to plant various crops, not too sophisticated. Their art and their pottery honored maize, and it was seen in a lot of other things that they did make. So maize was an important crop, but probably potatoes the most important crop. Inca suspension bridges, still those exist today over different rivers. This was the different kinds of potatoes they harvested. Varied diet of tomatoes and other things. Tubers. Peanuts, potatoes, squash, other things. Cocoa. And you can see here that was incorporated in their art. This is the database or their counting system, the Quipa. They did have mummification, and they've unearthed some of those. In fact, they were the few that did mummify because of the arid climate. And you can see the gold that the Spaniards were certainly interested in acquiring. Did they develop iron? No, but they did develop silver and gold forms, and they were very, this is all pre-Columbian art here.